Okay, good morning, Mr. Nishant, and welcome back to
Morning.
our episode number one. Ideally, if you're using a programmatic approach, the array zero is done. We are getting into array one, and this is the first episode that we would be having. So let's start with few recent newses. So there is a Biden's administration's AI diffusion law. And I was reading through the summary yesterday and just wanted to get your opinion on few of the topics. So what I got to know is there are pretty much US centric rules for sharing AI models now. And so let's look at, how do we share a model here to, let's say, get a permission. So there's a Taiwan countries which have direct access to US's models and US companies models, and there are tier two countries which need to take a permission. I think I read it like India is in the tier two countries where we have to get a permission to use the model. And there are, countries which are a dead no for using any of the models created by any American companies. So that's interesting direction where we are led to. So I wanted to know your opinion about basically, let's say you have this Llama, which is open source, and I know there are many open source work which is happening. People are forking it and then building their own models, retraining them. Um, but looking at how, like, as a law, a government is having a rule on model usages. How do you see it as shaping the race to AI model condition? That's one thing. Second is the hardware proliferation. So, for example, if US cannot ship a hardware, a GPU chip, which is above a particular threshold, then that's another bummer on the road also. So, what do you think of the whole situation?
See, we all knew this was coming, in the sense country-wise, people trying to, when we reach AGI, artificial general intelligence, countries would want to keep it for themselves. Okay, either it's US or China. This was, I think, first time when I heard about it was there was this guy called Leopold. His second name is too complicated. A German, Brenner. He was an OpenAI employee, and he was kicked out of OpenAI around 2 years ago. He came on Lex Friedman podcast, and as well as he wrote a nice blog article about, how the sovereign countries will start, holding on to the compute, and all this is coming. I mean, we are really going to a Cold War or probably a real war on compute and the AI model capabilities. But what surprised me is we are there already. I mean, it's not even at the age of O3 model, we are talking about, stopping the models being released to everyone. And see, my first reaction last week was thinking, oh shit, so we won't get O3 capabilities, Europe. Yeah. Because Europe is the last for all of this anyway. We are not getting any of these new models. When they launch any new feature, OpenAI, for example, we are not getting it here. I'm connecting using a VPN and trying to play with all these new features. Yeah. So the surprising fact is we are already there. Everyone is talking about next OpenAI model. We may not get it. I mean, I don't know if you heard GP. There are talks about GPT-5 being already used by US government. It's just that we don't know that it already released. So there are probably models like that we don't know, which are not already out there. We just general public, we don't have access to it.
Hmm.
So yeah, so we might be at a disadvantage, and open source, the our only hope is open source catching up. Yeah. And open source is not far behind. If you see, O3 O1, O3 is, according to me, the highest capable model at the moment. Oh, okay. O3 Mini is testing is done. I think we will get it probably this week. Some old man is talking about O3 Mini release, which is better than O1, okay, but much, much cheaper than O1 Pro.
Okay.
And yeah, so the point is, yeah, the point is we will not get access. Yeah.
Another interesting thought which I had is if you look at it from an Indian perspective, I think all this while I was thinking of more of application being driven by India. But I think we will have to invest in models, pre-training GPUs further if this is the way, like the Mandalorian says, this is the way. So I think that focus also has to come in the startups here, which is interesting. I know there are a lot of work happening here, specifically on the hardware side. Uh, but how does it manifest into a larger ecosystem of chip providers and how do you provide GPUs? How do you decentralize all this thing, govern it? I think we have a long way to go. We have to catch up with growing needs of the software industry. I think it's important times that we are living in. But having said that, I wanted to analyze two statements made by two veterans in the industry. One is from Satya Nadella and one is from Ilya. So let's say Satya has told SaaS is dead. That's not what he meant. But ideally, when he says SaaS is dead, he is practically talking about how are we going to build application in future will be completely different than how we used to build. That's what he says. Um, and Ilya's, another statement made me curious. He told that the pre-training era is done. So we only have one internet. So we have consumed all the data of it. That means maybe what you're telling about GPT-5 is correct because they would have trained already all of the data and they would have having a model which is capable of doing much bigger things. Um, but then I basically thought we should talk about like Owen family of models. How is it different from a GPTs? What do you think? Where Owen will take us? I have my thoughts on that, but I will wait for you to discuss about this, and then we can talk about it. So about Owen models and the difference between GPTs.
Yeah, so there is so much to unpack in all this, I believe. But then Satya Nadella's talk about SaaS is dead. I didn't see it. Okay, I saw some thumbnails on YouTube where this speech has come out. But even since a while, I mean, my thinking was also same. Why should these overpriced SaaS exist anymore? In the sense, let's take Salesforce. Okay, Salesforce, they sell CRMs. Let's take mainly CRMs. Okay. All our enterprise companies, they pay this huge license amount to Salesforce to use their CRM or even build on top of Salesforce platform, right? Now, if software development has become so easy, companies can just replace their Salesforce CRM with an in-house, homegrown CRM easily developed, and they can stop paying OpenAI every month. This is one-time development. You use it forever. Uh, I think one of the example we saw is this company called Klarna. Klarna is a big company in the US, probably even worldwide, where they help us pay when we buy online, pay into multiple, 4 times EMI kind of scheme. Through Klarna, we can split our payment shopping. I think they have shopping business as well as this payment split EMI kind of business. I'm not very sure, but they are the ones first announced like they have replaced some huge enterprise CRM with their own homegrown product. Even customer support, they developed AI customer support internally and replaced these kind of enterprise systems. So from that angle, SaaS is dead. Even I tend to believe, or I want to believe, we are going back to the old days, like on-premise software, we all buy software with CD and install it on our laptop kind of situation. So SaaS will go off. We will be back to on-premise. I mean, I also believe in this. Let's see where this goes. Your second point about O1 group of model. So previously in our last first discussion, I was thinking I was really wanted to come towards open or source. Can they catch up with the closed source? I mean, I lost my stream of thought there. But you see, when we talk about model training, frontier model, these foundation models, it's only really US and China we hear more, right? We don't hear Quen series of models, DeepSeek, reasoning. So China and US. I have to ask you, like in India, is there something going on? Are people training model from the scratch and these kind of innovative ways like US or China? If not, when these country Cold War comes up, model gets blocked, we don't have capability. Where will India go? Where will we get our models from? Really cutting edge AGI models. So there is that question. And coming to OpenAI O1 series of models, how you see it is there is O1 mini, there is O1, then there is O1 Pro, which is like 200 euros a month, very expensive at the moment. And next one, O2, they are skipping it because there is a company named O2 in the UK. They cannot reuse that name. So they are directly going to O3. So there is O3 mini, O3, and then O3 Pro. Okay, so those three will come out. And in one of the tweet reply 2 days ago, some old man said they will price it exactly at 200. They will not go to $2,000. So that's one thing he gave away in one of the tweets. Another thing people asked him is, so GPT-5, is it a separate series of models and O series is separate? So he said, no, they also internally thinking how to combine both into the same capability. So even in 2025, if these two models go in separate track, they really want to bring it together. End of 2025, they will have only one series, maybe, or four, they will go with the combined series. So I don't see it really diverging completely in two different areas, at least from what he said.
Okay, so just about the technicalities of Owen, what I understand is this. So there is this concept of chain of thought. So rather than giving importance to the inference speed, what we are looking at is if a consumer of the model is asking a statement of problem, ideally, the Owen does not return an answer immediately. Rather, it looks at the question, it slices into multiple steps, and on each of the step, it starts thinking on its own. So it kind of takes its own time to generate answer. It kind of generate its own token, inference token by thinking. So it also adds up to the cost, which is what we discussed in last call also.
Yeah.
And then it it gives you an answer after some time. Maybe it's a solution to what we have asked. It could again get into the same you know thought process of breaking it down and then thinking on top of each of the step and then answering it. Now, this is an interesting paradigm. I would like to take you back to the Ilya's response on pre-training era is dead. That means that we need to have a different architecture or a maybe different paradigm on which we take these models to. For example, uh, you are not having any more data. Synthetic data is not going to help you much. So how do you take it further? So can we have longer context? How do we get better at solving greater problems? And these are the questions that we are looking at. So what is your thought process around, how does this own functions and how on what all typical use cases, whether it fits into?
Yeah. See, to try this, I mean, I was trying as soon as O1 came out, okay, using VPN, I was mainly trying O1. And in a few interaction, I realized it's not really chat. we don't go with that chat approach anymore. I mean, that's not the way it performs. You know, chat, okay, quickly you ask something, it respond to you very quickly, and you can continue to you make your question more and more complicated or dig into a particular subject. I mean, this is how chat works, right? Even with the real-time voice, and when I go for a walk and have a coffee, I mean, I keep chatting with this advanced voice, you know keep digging into a particular topic iteratively, like progressively you keep talking to it, and then you start to understand a particular topic. But O1, obviously, because each question takes a lot of time to respond, sometimes it takes 1 minute, sometimes 2 minutes, you can't go with this chat approach anymore. So in a few days, you start to understand it expects you to give it a complete context, one shot. You have to, I think you have to give it one goal, really what you're looking for, and give all the context around it. Okay. And then ask that one question. Owen is able to come up with a full report, one shot with very minimal mistake compared to the GPT-4 series of model. It's very different. When you play with it, you understand the feeling is very different. So for example, I can give you an example where uh, let's say health data. Okay, you have a lot of different health data. These days we track, I track the, on Aura Ring, my sleep pattern since 2 3 years. There is the running Strava data. Okay, then there is all your medical documents and all such details. You know what you eat, your pattern of eating. So all these, it has become different types of data already. All this I screenshot it or I download it and I give it to Owen at once. Okay. It can only take 3 or 4 screenshots at a time, but you tell it, okay, till I say complete, keep asking me for more screenshots. So I keep uploading, let's say 20 different screenshots of all these documents, then some Excel sheets or whatever. And finally, you give it one goal. In 2025, how can I improve my goal or my fat percentage to this much percentage? Okay, give it that one goal. Then it's able to give you a 10-page, very clear step-by-step definition of what you should do to achieve that goal. So the way I see O1 Pro, so I'm using O1 Pro now. I paid 200 in December. I also continued in January, another 200 just to see how far I can push it. So it's really able to take a goal, get all the context, and give you answer one shot. This is how I see Owen Pro. And the problems can be very complex, like how to improve your health to this particular point. It's a complex problem which one doctor cannot tell you or a nutritionist cannot tell you. It's all these very different kind of data that you can give. So that's from a practical perspective. Okay. But we can talk more, but this is, just to tell you how I used Owen Pro. There is a nice article which came out last week. This guy called Swyx, Swyx, Swyx. They have a podcast called Latent Space Podcast, where very interesting podcast for AI engineers. This I listen to every week. So he came out with this one big blog article on, how to make use of O series models. How different you have to prompt it, what's that real paradigm shift. So that's something we can put it on our show notes so anybody can dig into.
Okay. Uh, that's an interesting thought. So I was also looking into Jeffrey Hinton's interview recently, where he told, we don't know how it functions. That's a big statement, ideally. So if you look at the entire transformer architecture was born, and then it was meant for kind of an expert predictor. So what he told is, we are not creating a program, rather we are creating neural networks. And the moment neural network interfaces with data, it creates its own paradigm internally, which we don't know what is happening. And when I heard that, I was also listening to the Anthropic CEO's podcast with Um,
Dario
Lex,
Amodei and Lex Friedman. Yeah.
yeah, Lex, another very interesting podcast for
A 5 hour podcast.
5 hours. Yeah, it took me, 4 days or 5 days to finish it off. But in that, he's also talking about an interesting pattern for AI safety. Jeffrey Hinton told we don't understand what is happening when the neural network interacts with the data. What Anthropic is doing is they are telling if you wanted to classify your model as safe enough, so they are trying to re-engineer what is happening on the way it is given answers. So they
Yeah.
are marking the internal pathways of neural networks for us to identify how it has happened. And the interesting part, why they are doing this work is because if you are finding a particular model trying to harm you or trying to deceive you, then how do you tell that it is trying to harm you or trying to deceive you, right? That's what even every organization wanted to do. So by re-engineering, if we can understand, let's say, how it is trying to deceive you, then they can alert you on stating that there is a pattern which is emerging from the model, which is trying to deceive you, and then kind of help you to safeguard it. So this is, something which I looked at it. Then it all kind of um amalgamated into a thought of how are we going to create a product out of all these models what we have. We are having a lot of movement in AI, right? Then I started digging into the practical examples of AI. Uh, I, I- you know I, the first thing that we do is you ask ChatGPT or let's say Perplexity and you get the standard answers. But then when I looked into further uh, AI development, what I realized is one of the best products which have come out after the entire generative AI era is maybe Copilot. But Copilot integrated with VS Code was the first step, right? That's how it functioned. That's how it started helping. Now the Cursor team has taken that product into another level and they have built an entire stack on top of it. They, fork the VS Code. They, try to train the model and they are building different features on top of it. So I felt Cursor should be a very first example of how we should understand how the product has to be developed. That's my thought of or analysis. So in that, the team from the Cursor has given an interesting insight into how do they develop. So after the initial stages, the Copilot started feeling kind of a stale. It had hype. It worked really well, and then it did not, entice us, if I may say that. So if it has to um, go further and create it as a better product, what do we do, right? So what the Cursor team told us, and the person who's training the model, the person who's building the user interface and the entire feature flow is sitting 1 feet away. They're all sitting together and building this together. It's not like Copilot is given by OpenAI and Microsoft is building VS Code and they don't know what how to integrate it. They're just integrating with some basic workflows. I found that interesting. Another thing which they told us, let's say they have the tab feature and they have the code diff feature, right? Now, to show the code diff in, and then apply that onto your editor does not need much of an intelligence. So what they say is the frontline models like O1 is very
Okay.
good for you. Yeah, very good for giving you a plan and for smaller features, something like a diff, you just need a smaller model which does not have huge intelligence, but it does it work. So they're just bifurcating the planning and the execution in a product development in AI era completely different using different models. I think that's an interesting workflow which I found, and I think, and at least next 1 or 2 years, if you're building a product in AI, this could be a pattern which everybody can follow. So
Yeah.
just wanted to know your thoughts around it.
Yeah, yeah, I understand what you mean. This is what even the podcast, Lex Friedman podcast with Cursor guys. I mean, those four guys. I mean, they look like a very small team, deeply focused on this problem, right? And they are able to innovate much faster than GitHub. Okay, GitHub must be like really a big team of a lot of people. They will have this innovation issues when it comes to large enterprise, right? Like Microsoft. So even there, to understand it better, I would suggest the GitHub CEO. There is some nice podcasts and article. His name is Thomas Domke, a German guy who is the actual CEO of GitHub. He's also amazing. And but Cursor is outpacing them in terms of innovation, I believe. Even I switched to Cursor a year ago, and you don't want to go back to Visual Studio after that for some reason. I don't know, Cursor feels very simple, more natural. There is something about Cursor IDE which I feel much better than Visual Studio Code. Same way, there is some new guys, Wingspan. There are a few more like really cutting edge new other IDE tools, which is in the market now. I haven't tried them yet. But yeah, so you started talking about the model interpretability first, right? Uh, so we'll go in that order. So Anthropic, Dario Amodei was in OpenAI. He was an OpenAI employee before. They were more on the safety side and they had issues with some Altman. Then that's how they quit and they started their own company, right? This Anthropic, which is now the number two challenger to OpenAI in most of the cases. And they really started working on interpretability and model interpretability aspect. I think they are the one leading, which understands what exactly is this intelligence. People call it these days alien intelligence because we don't know how this intelligence works. It's just that we are reinforced, RLHF, reinforcement learning, human feedback. We are actually just fine tuning it with our own, human feedback to make it more human-like, but it's not really a human-like intelligence inside. Okay, so RLHF is making it more human-like, I believe, all these models. So interpretability is a big topic when it comes to safety. If we don't understand what's happening inside these models, we will not be able to control the safety. So Anthropic, I think they are doing a lot of things around this. There were some interesting a year ago, maybe this San Francisco model, not San Francisco model. It's that bridge, right? Golden Gate Bridge.
Golden Gate Bridge, yeah.
They trained a model to answer everything around, very specific to Golden Gate Bridge. So if you ask it any question, somehow the answer will end up being Golden Gate Bridge. Okay. So this is one way they explored, the interpretability, I guess. That's when this funny thing came out. And in X/Twitter, this was all over the place, a lot of memes around this. So these guys are making a lot of progress on interpretability, and so that's one thing. Coming directly to Cursor, practicality of it, how do we use Cursor and which ID is better and all that? We can even take a look at, once creating one simple application in Cursor if you want to screen share and we can take a look. But about you, what you were saying, I understand the Cursor team is using a lot of different models, my mini models for that specific task. So in that IDE, maybe when we are looking at it, even though we have an option to select which model, but the IDE itself working on different files, they are using a lot of mini models, cost effective, fast, trained only for that purpose. So as you said, we will all be going towards that path in the future. I think, we will be using models only for that purpose. We don't want to always use that AGI model, which is probably very expensive, which knows everything. Instead, we will be using army of models. Uh, we will all have hundreds of models for different reasons.
Correct. And it brings me back to the microservice era, where we had patterns to manage microservices, and then now AI is coming. I feel we are getting into a direction where we will have to manage multiple types of models, which can be mini pro and different. And so in essence, what I feel is what is happening now is I know programmers will have less and less work because most of the programs will be written by, let's say, AI. But what I feel is there is always going to be need of a non-functional aspect of the software is going to be there for a longer time, is what I feel. And we will have to figure out what are the non-functional aspect of creating an agentic workflow AI-based application, and how what is the new way of doing things, and then understand that and work on it. Because I think the programming will slowly diminish, and non-functional aspect of the software will still stay, is what I feel. I think if you
For
want to
how
create.
long? Yeah, no, you mean CI/CD, setting it up, and actual the whole production workflow.
No, no. So when I say non-functional, right? Even it's the same thing which I heard in the Anthropics podcast. Rather than, let's say, pre-training and maybe prompt engineering, all the other aspect of how do they deliver, a Sonnet or a Claude model is basically the same way of, let's say, stress testing, let's say, functional testing, let's say, how do I make this AI more safer? How they're also even having a person who will train the model to give it a character so that it does not feel like
Yeah, yeah,
somebody very harsh or something, right? So these are non-functional aspect of AI. So maybe CI/CD will not be there. Let's say, okay, that's an older way of doing things, but some new paradigms about non-functional aspect of a software will emerge, is what I feel, and it'll still stay. So like the
yeah.
character building of this thing model, right? That's a new thing which we never do with the software, and
Right.
that will have to be done with models now, because models are something. So, it's not a system anymore, and it's more and more human like that we are feeling. I wanted to add one more thing to this. So last week there was an announcement about the project management AI agent from Microsoft, right? So what is interesting in that is they're also there, stitching together different pieces and building the entire workflow. But what is interesting is you will have to work with some tasks with the AI models, and you will have to work with some tasks with humans also. So that is an interesting area of interaction where we will focus the team exactly. They were telling if you're giving an experience for a human, then in an IDE, they will have to devise different mechanism to make the programmer's life easier. But if their workflow is directly interacting with an AI model, they do not have to worry too much about how that happens. So I think there will be lot more non-functional segments which will evolve in future, and it will be something which we will have to understand and then learn about it, and then help the software developers further. I mean, these are my thoughts, which I
No, no,
gathered around last week.
I think that's a good point because I remember when you spoke about this character. So last year when there was GPT-4 and Claude 3.5 on a head-to-head at some point, both were equally capable. And I started using Claude more and more somewhere, when Claude released, and then didn't go back to OpenAI ChatGPT at all till 4.0 came out. I mean, I was completely using Claude all the time. And then slowly you start realizing why you do that because Claude felt more human. Okay. When you ask any kind of question, I was mainly using it for my son's some medical report or whatever. It was giving more human like simple natural answer. ChatGPT was a bit more structured, so I started liking Claude more. And only when I listened to this podcast with Dario Amodaya, I realized they have a team to develop the character for the AI. It was amazing, and that's completely new. We couldn't have imagined such kind of role in the past. As you said, this is a completely new kind of job which is for this era. Nobody could have imagined there will be a character definition maker for an AI. So those kind of new thing will completely start to come out. Project manager agent, I was experiment even when you told me last week, I was checking because I'm managing multiple AI projects in the company, I thought, why not? I'll use a PM buddy, okay, added into all the Teams meeting that I attend. It will take notes on behalf of me, you know. So it'll be another teammate in the call who's taking notes, and he will remember what's the task for the next meeting. But then it's not publicly available yet, so we don't have the license yet. As soon as it's available, I should get it to play with it. But these are all completely new things. We might have new jobs coming around all this, YouTube influencer. Who thought such a job would exist 10 years ago or before YouTube, right? A lot of people have this YouTube influencer job these days. So there will be completely new type of job which we never thought will start to appear, for sure. I mean, if that's what you meant. Yeah.
Correct. Because a lot of people are clueless in this sudden shift of technology, and they are looking at what will be the new roles, how can we get prepared for that roles and things like that, right? I think it's interesting to observe this changes and then understand what is important. So first of all, we discussed about how do we create a AI product. We took an example of cursor and we told how a frontier model like O1 can be used, how the smaller model can be used, and it is going to be a collection of all these models. How do you give a interactive environment for the consumers? That's about the product development about AI. Then we spoke about when you develop this product, what are the new segments which will happen, and what are the different aspect of product development which will remain. So that's also interesting thought here. So I think um, so. Today, today's the entire topic was around O1 product development, practical applicability of implementation, and all that pieces. I think we are almost on time
Yeah.
here. So I would like to leave us with this thought about practical implementation of AI. How do we develop product? What are the different roles? And so that's the crux of today's call. Maybe we should jump into a bit more detail about model architecture later, because something which I was observing is the computer vision, the way it is going. Uh, they do not use the transformer architecture, right? It's more of generative AI which is using it, and they are making it its own progress. So if you take an umbrella of AI, where is this headed? Not only the agentic approach, not only the generative AI approach, not only the computer vision. I think we should look at the impact of AI into different segments of AI and how they share different types of architecture, maybe in the next call. That's an interesting thought I have. But having said that, any end thoughts to today's episode?
No, I mean, today also we were not really structured. We were just all over the place. We were going all over the place, talking about everything that we know. So maybe I hope people find some of these things interesting. We can even one of the next episodes, or even at the end of the session, we can add a video of uh, creating a simple application using cursor. How does it work? Or even another one I want to explore is Riplet is another tool which takes care of the whole CI/CD and deployment, everything, not only just developing a small program, but from the beginning to end deployment. So these are all both our agents which will automatically do things, right? So we can show some examples. This is a possibility. But otherwise, yes, we can jump into all these different models and then high level architecture. If it is different in some way, the vision and the Gen AI computer use from Anthropic, how these are different architecturally. This is something we can explore. But good.
Yeah. And I also saw there are a lot of new things about handling long context, a different architecture for that. So I think we should just put some high level lights on different types of architecture for different use cases. Faster inference, planning, let's say longer context, those kind of thoughts. I think that will also come under the umbrella of applicability of AI. So let's keep exploring. I think we are on time, and thank you for your time today. Wish you a happy weekend, and until we meet next time, see you.
Bye.
Bye.